Another Tuesday as we get closer to the holiday season. It's not too far away now. I hope you're all managing to stay strong and stay healthy and get through all the work. Hopefully, a lot of you are busy coming up to the holiday season. For those of you joining us live, thank you so much for joining us. And those who will join us a little later in the replays, welcome when you see us in the replays. So I'm delighted to be joined by Zena Ryle today. So yes, we share a name. She is my little sister. Yes, she is the good looking one. I'm the ugly brute, but that's all right too. So Zena is marketing manager of 3XM. So I'm sure many of you know her from there. And today we're going to talk about the psychology of pricing. Zena, pricing is something that confuses a lot of people. Why do you think that is?
I guess some people don't even know where to start sometimes when it comes to pricing what they offer. And, you know, that's a whole another subject in itself, is working out what your numbers actually should be and what you should be charging. But today we're going to talk about just the psychological reasons for pricing yourself in such a way that will manipulate, is kind of a dirty word, but kind of help your clients to get over the line or be happy in what they're spending with you. So there's a few things that we're going to touch on tonight.
And then BSA, Mastermind, and 3XM, like, you guys are happy to join us in there, because that's literally what we're going through at the moment in the business success plan for next year, is pricing for profit, as you can see from the graphic behind me. Pricing for success is pricing for profit, but we're not going to talk about that tonight. We're going to talk about the much cooler part of it and the much more interesting part of it. Rather than looking at numbers, we're going to talk about the psychology of pricing. So I know, Zena, that you've published a whole book on it, not a book, an ebook on this. So we'll share the link with that with people later, right? But one of the things, I was reading it again today, and one of the things you talk about is charm pricing. Can you just tell us what charm pricing is? And I know there's a really cool story behind how it came about. So tell us about that.
Yeah, so charm pricing, I'm sure you're all really well aware of this, is pricing that ends in a 9 or a 99. You might see 199 or even 95, so 195, for example. And the history behind it is actually rooted in the 1800s, when they first brought out the cash register. So the shop owners, they obviously didn't trust their staff very much, because they wanted to make sure that their staff member was opening that till at every transaction. So if someone handed over a $5 bill, they weren't putting that $5 bill in their pocket. It was $4.99, so they had to open the cash register and give them that penny change. So it's a way to keep them honest, which I thought was quite funny.
So is that why the cash registers used to ding ding as well? So the owner, the shopkeeper, would hear the ding ding, and the only reason he heard the ding ding more often than he might have is because they had to give 1 cent or 5 cent change.
Yeah, that's probably exactly why it
Crazy.
gives the noise, so they know.
Crazy. And tell me this, but there is a psychological piece to it as well. So it may have started that way, but they've also proven that there's a psychological piece to ending in 9 or charm pricing.
Yeah, absolutely. And they've done numerous studies on it to prove that it does actually work. And the reason why is it's most effective if the leftmost digit of the price changes. So if you go from $400 to $399, the way the human brain works is we read from left to right. So when we read $399, we just see the 3. Even though it's essentially $400, we think of it as 3 instead of 4, and then so we think of it as the price being lower. And that's literally how it works. It's most effective if you do it that way. But if you, for example, have a price of $480 and you want to change it to ending in 9, and you bring it to 479, because that left digit doesn't change, it's not going to be as effective. So that's something to bear in mind as well. Now, there is a bit of a caveat with this, the 9 pricing thing, is when it comes to luxury experiences or luxury goods or something that's very experiential, they actually recommend that you use rounded number pricings instead of this ending in 9, because the ending in 9 thing is perceived as being maybe a little cheaper, discounted, or it really works for people who are price conscious. So if you know that your client is price conscious, then maybe it's a better idea to use that charm pricing tactic. But if you're offering a very high-end, luxurious experience type thing, then maybe the rounded numbers are going to work for you better.
Okay, so because that's what Sotheby's do, right? Like at the high-end auctions where they're selling the really expensive stuff, it's always, 5,000. It's not 4,999. But then, of course, many businesses think they might be a luxury premium brand, but everything has to align. It's a bit like the Michelin star restaurants, right? And if you are pitching your price to be that luxury brand, well, then everything has to align with that idea, like you would experience in a Michelin star restaurant.
Yeah, exactly. So again, it comes down to knowing who your people are, your clients.
And knowing where you're pitching your brand and everything else, and that it all has to align. So talk to us then about this idea of fewer syllables, talk to us about why that works.
Yeah, so say you see a price and it's 1,499. So the way that you read that when you're reading it out loud or in your head is you think $1,499. If you take out that comma, so a tiny, tiny change, you now look at it as $14.99. It's half the number of syllables as the 1,499. And for some reason, that makes us, again, perceive the price as being lower. So a really simple thing to do is look for the fewest number of syllables that you can get away with when you're publishing your pricing.
And so does that mean then that if I've got the dollar, euro, or pound sign, depending on where we are in the world in front of our price, does that mean that gets dropped as well?
Yeah, that definitely is an option, because the minute you see a currency symbol, you automatically think money, spending money, pain. Spending money is painful. So if you can reduce that pain in any way you can, get rid of the currency symbol. Now, obviously, it needs to be obvious that you're still talking about a price. So if it's not clear that this is a price, you may need to include the symbol. But if it's obvious that you're talking about pricing, drop the currency symbol. And you may notice that if you go to like really expensive restaurants, they never have the currency symbol on the price. It's always 50 or 90 or whatever it is.
And that's the reason behind it, that we're keeping you in an emotional mindset, which we work hard at in sales and marketing, and particularly in this industry, with our slideshow to musics, to bring the person from logical brain to emotional brain. So it makes sense then that if we do all that work and then we present them a price list that turns them back into logical, well, then it all goes pear-shaped, right? And we wonder why sometimes. So that's the advice there. So drop that. So talk to me then about, I know there's this thought process around the effect exposure to a high price can have on the perceived costs financially.
Yeah, this is a really kind of a funny one. And basically, the whole idea is if you expose someone to a high number, and doesn't even have to be linked to, say, the price of the product that you're trying to sell them in any way, shape, or form, but it automatically produces a reference point in their own minds. And then when they see the price of your product or whatever, they automatically think, that's okay, because they started at this high point. Now, the example, they did a study, which I think is absolutely fascinating, right? And they got a bunch of people and they picked random products from various type of prices, like a calculator, a coffee machine, whatever. And they asked them, yes or no, would you pay the last 2 digits of your social security number for that product? Yes or no for each of the ones, right? After they did that, they then asked them to look at the products again, one after another. How much would you be willing to pay for each product? Now, the people who had a higher ending social security number, the last 2 digits, so say 80 to 99, they were willing to pay way more money than the people who had a low number. So the people who had 00 to 19 were willing to pay $16 for, I think it was a calculator. The people who had the highest number, 80 to 99, were willing to pay $55, like more than double. And like a social security number has nothing to do with the price of a calculator, but that's the kind of effect this thing has on our heads.
So this social security number, the last 2 digits, were presented to people before they were asked to say what they would pay for the calculator. Is that right?
Yeah, well, everyone should know their own social security number. So okay. It's linked to their social security number. And so I just thought that was crazy.
Okay, so how can we introduce that then as photographers? So are you saying that, before we discuss price, if we can get our clients to start thinking about a higher number that might be totally unrelated, that might get them in a frame of mind of spending more when they see our prices?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good question. It's yeah, and if anyone has any ideas on that, what could you do to plant a big number in your client's head before that ordering session or during the consultation maybe?
So you guys are the experts, right, out there. So we're just sharing some of the ideas of psychology of pricing, but you're the guys who are running professional photographic studios. So if you have any ideas around how you might use that, just share them in the chat. And Jonathan, yes, you're right. When you've got a luxury brand, even the bathroom has to align. And that's something that's often overlooked, right? That so many restaurants you go into that aren't Michelin star, and you walk into the bathroom and you go, really? Am I really here? Should I be here? So everything has to align, even how you answer the phone, and everything has to align if you're going to be that luxury brand. Everything, every communication, every touch point. I think it was Elvis Presley that said that your brand is like your fingerprints. You leave them on everything you touch. And it's a great analogy, I think. Everything you touch, even the door handle, the feel of the door handle into the studio, it all has to align if you're going to be in that luxury space. So if you've got any ideas, guys, on that as to how you can sort of bring something up before you get into pricing or decision making on pricing by your client to get them into a high frame of mind. So Zena, would something like this might work? So let's say I saw the client was in a new BMW, right? And they'd come to the studio, and I noticed that they were driving a new BMW. What if I was able to introduce somewhere in the process, oh, I see you've got the new 7 Series BMW. I was thinking of getting one of those myself. What do you think of it? And how much did it cost, you mind me asking?
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be related to photography at all, I think, is what you're saying to us. It's just them to mention a figure or think about a figure that is a high number.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'd love to hear if anyone has ideas on what you could do, definitely share them with us. It'd be interesting to see.
So Zena, do you know this principle of price anchoring? And we'll explain what that is in a minute, but maybe that has some effect there, maybe into one of the reasons why price anchoring might work. So first of all, before we discuss that, what is price anchoring?
Yeah, so price anchoring, basically it relies on people. The first piece of information that a person comes across, it's again setting that reference point in their head. And from there, they work on. So with price anchoring, say you have 2 packages or 2 product collections, right? And you have one at $500 and another one at $1,000. People will generally go, do you know what? The $500 ones is probably fine for me. And more people will end up at that lower one. Now, the minute you add in a 3rd package at a higher price point, so this is now your most expensive one, automatically people go, I'm going to go for the middle one. That seems like a good option. And they say about 70 to 80% of people will end up in that middle package purely because you have 3 instead of 2. Now, you can even go another one and add in a 4th package. You could price this like way out there. So this is like the crazy, most elite, luxurious experience in the history of the world. And I don't know what you want to price it at, whether it's twice as expensive as the next one down. But if you have that one first and they come in and go, ooh, $10,000, okay, that seems like quite a lot. The next one's 5,000, the next one's 2.5, and the next one's 1,000. Now those 3 look like really good value. And you'll probably push more people into that 3rd package instead of everyone sitting in that middle package. So again, comes back to the high reference point, comes back to whole price anchoring idea.
So what you're saying to me is, if I'm going to have a choice of 3, I need to make sure the top priced one is priced for price anchoring, not to sell, so that I sell more of number 2. Or if I'm going to have 3 that I want to sell, then my 4th one, which is the one they'll see first, is my price anchoring package. So I sell more of my want to be top package. And just by having that price anchoring, but I have to design it with the mindset that it's not my intention to sell it, right?
Yeah, if you're going to go way out there with that fourth one, don't be worried if nobody buys it, but you're going to push people more into the next two down. So package 2 and 3. So you're automatically going to lift then your sales averages.
Okay. And if I'm not doing collections or packages, the same applies really, doesn't it? Even if I'm doing everything a la carte, I should approach it the same way, but I should also list my pricing high to low. Can you just talk to us about that and why that's the case?
Yeah, definitely. And they did an experiment in a bar actually. And so one week they'd list their bottles of beer from high to low. So most expensive down to the cheapest. Then the next week they would switch it and price them from low to high. And they found that the average price that the person paid for beer in that whole week was higher when you price them from high to low. And the reason behind that is, say you're starting at the bottom price, you're starting from low to high, right? And you're working your way down the list and you're going, oh, these are getting more expensive. So in your head, you're thinking, I'm losing money the further I go down. So you'll stop earlier. Now, if you change that around and you're working from high to low, as you're going down the list, you're thinking, okay, it's getting cheaper, but I'm probably losing quality. So you'll stop earlier. But now you're stopping earlier at a higher price than when you're going from low to high. So that's how our brains work. We think we're losing quality versus we're losing money. And that's why the high to low seems to work.
And we can learn a lot looking outside our industry as well, can't we? Because I think the car brands do similar. So if you go to look at a new car, what have you noticed there? Or what have you read or researched there?
Yeah, the car salesman, he'll always start with the most expensive one with all the bells and whistles. And you're like, yeah, that looks amazing. And only then will he move on to the cheaper one. So you think, do you know what, that actually looks amazing value. And you'll settle higher up the scale than if he was to start the other way around. You'll go, yeah, that'll do.
So they don't start with the basic model and add on the leather seats and add on all the extras. They'll show you, the high-end car first and read your body language, engage where you are, and then come down rather than the other direction. And in fact, seen a lot of the top educators and photographers in our industry for a long time have been suggesting and teaching photographers, like if they're setting for the one wall art, start with the biggest size first, which is obviously the most expensive, and come down, from that. So, so that seems to align with that practice.
And a very, very simple thing for people to do with their prices. It's one of the easiest things in the world. Everyone can do it tomorrow.
Yes, they can. Yes, they can. And Zena, there's another thing there that there was some research, unrelated but quite interesting, and I think it probably falls within the same idea of psychology, but they ran some tests where they had 2 lines or queues at a buffet for breakfast. And on one side, they put, say, the sausages first, and then the bacon, and then the hash browns, and then the tomato, and then the beans, and then the mushrooms. And on the other line or queue, they reversed the order. And what they found was that the first 3 items, people had more of on their plate, regardless of what the item was. Because you would think that, like, if I like bacon, I'll skip the first 3 till I find the bacon, right? But they actually found that wasn't the case for most people. So that's interesting. And I think the same probably applies to this pricing, going from high to low and reading down it. I'll stop at some stage when my mind gets bored or whatever, and I'll stop with that one. So yeah. So interesting. So talk to us about this idea of, when we're actually parting with dollar bills or euros or sterling pounds, that if we're handing over money, that it can sort of get in the way of the spend versus using other tactics. And I think this research is based around casinos. Tell us about casinos and what happens in casinos.
Yeah, so if you've ever been in a casino, which I'm sure many of you have, you'll notice that they use chips rather than cold hard cash. So you go in and you buy your chips once, and then now you have your chips. But the reason behind it is that once your money changes into a different medium, whether that's casino chips or a voucher or even a credit card, it changes in the person's brain. So the worst pain is seeing physical cash being taken from your hand, right? Nobody likes it. It's not nice. But the minute it changes to a chip or a credit card or something else, it's like, ah, yeah, it's grand. It almost feels like it's not real money. So it doesn't seem so painful to spend it. So that's the whole thing behind that. But again, it's about reducing the pain of paying for something. That's what your aim is to do. So a really good example that I came across was if you compare your experience of getting in a taxi as opposed to getting an Uber. So if you get a taxi, you hail the taxi, you get in, you've no idea what the journey is going to cost. You're sitting there watching that meter go up and up and thinking, oh, crikey, what is this going to end up at? Have I got enough cash in my pocket?
I've been there. And you go, I can't believe it's now $19. Oh, sugar, it's now 24. And it just goes up and up and up and up and up.
I know, it's a horrible feeling. And you're not sure where it's going to end up at. And there's always an extra charge added on at the end as well that you weren't expecting. And then you're like, oh, do I have enough cash or will they take a card? But when you're with an Uber, you book your Uber, you know exactly how much it's going to cost before you even get in the car. And then you get in the car and the payment is all automatic. You don't even notice, you hand over nothing. So it's a much more relaxed, much nicer experience. You don't have that same pain of paying for your car journey.
So how do you think that aligns with the photography world? Because, you know, quite often our clients, if you get in a taxi or an Uber, right, you know what you're doing. You're trying to get from destination A to destination B, right? But a lot of consumers don't see the true value in what we do sometimes until they actually see the end result, you know, when we project it on the screen or project it with a projector or whatever, and we start talking, going through the images then, and then the emotion comes through and they see how we've captured those significant relationships and those that are important to us. How do you think we can use that idea in photography without frightening them off up front?
Yeah, well, you know, it's really important if you are talking about what you offer, that you're not talking about money or pricing or even words that relate to that, that you're purely talking about the amazing experience you're going to offer, the time you're going to give them, the time that they're going to have in the photo shoot, feeling amazing, looking amazing, the time that they're going to spend with their family, looking at their images, enjoying the images. Say they have a folio box, a 3XM folio box, of course, and their family are getting together going, right, who gets to choose what image goes in the window this week, you know, what one goes on display. So talk about all of the time element rather than the money element of what it's going to cost, because time, after all, is way more precious than any amount of money, because that is what is most scarce in the world. So that's really important, whether you have it in the copy on your pricing brochure, product brochure, catalog. Think about using words that relate to that rather than it's going to cost you this much or you will pay this much upfront or after or whatever. So think about the words that you use.
So what you're saying is that we got to try and keep our clients out of thinking about the actual financial element, and the best way to do that is use time. Is that what you're saying to us?
Yeah, to think about basically if you make someone focus on time, it actually creates a personal connection with the product or the service that they're paying for instead of the money that's coming out of their pocket. Psychological thing again. This is all, by the way, this is all scientifically verified stuff. It's not stuff that we're plucking out of the air.
Okay, so some of these concepts, you know, some photographers will be using them already and some won't, and there's a whole load of different ways you can use these concepts. It's about sitting down and just analyzing, right? And we will share a guide, right, at the end of this, a link where people can get, which they can read and see the comparison and see what it is. And I think you've got a checklist or something as well, don't you, that people can get if they're registered on 3XM Solutions website? Okay, so just thinking about that time thing then. So a lot of it comes down to language too, right? And the language patterns we use and where we bring our client even just in the visualization process, in terms of if you use time, you can sort of future-proof the offering, you know, and explain to people and part of the process that, you know, this piece of wall art that we're here will become more valuable to you in time, you know, and when the children fly the nest, and leave for college or get married, you will every single day you see that image, it'll actually become more valuable to you, or that art. So
Definitely.
so sell the time aspect of the value and the emotions that it brings in the future, rather than focusing on the price, and try and keep your client in that mindset. Okay, so talk to us then about decoy pricing. I'm fascinated by this because I haven't heard of decoy pricing before. So it's one of the strategies I wasn't aware of. So tell us about decoy pricing. What is decoy pricing? It sounds a bit like Magnum PI, that we're gonna put our what they might do with the present. You think he's in that car, but he's in that car, or she's in that car. How does decoy pricing work? I'm fascinated.
Yeah, so it's a little bit like the whole price anchoring thing in a way, but it's a little different. So say you have basically, in a nutshell, right? It's offering something slightly better, but it's much worse in terms of price, right? So say you have your two packages, right? And there's your lower package and your middle package, and they both look okay, they look reasonable. If you now add on a third package, right, that's way more expensive than that middle package, but you get way less benefit in what's included in it, now people go, do you know what, that middle package looks really good value. Whereas before they were looking at the cheaper one all the time going, that's probably good enough, I don't need the other one. Now they'll go, ooh, that middle one looks amazing. So it's basically kind of a manipulation of where you want your client to end up. Now there's another way to do that. So say you want you're pushing someone into that middle package, right? That's your target. Say you want someone to go for your top package. Well, now you have to make your middle package look like really crappy value. So you're getting something similar, but you're paying, an amount that doesn't reflect it. So now people are going to go, do you know what? That top one looks like really good value. I'm going for that one. So it's just manipulating where you're pushing them.
So everyone's numbers are unique to their numbers. So the numbers I'm using here are not example averages for recommending. I'm just picking numbers that are easy for an owl fella like me to remember, right? So what you're saying is, let's just take some easy numbers so I can remember them. So, quite often, maybe if I was having 500, 750, 1,000, or 500 and 1,000, I put my middle package sort of between the two at 750. But if I want to sell more of the 1,000 package, and that can be 10,000, yeah, or 7,500, don't get fixed on the numbers. But rather than picking a middle between the two, I might go 900. So 500, 900, 1,000, right? And that way, then they see far more value in the 1,000 and therefore spend the 1,000. Is that what you're suggesting?
You could do that, but you need to also look at what's included in the packages. So if the packages look very similar, but there's not much of a price difference, they'll go for that higher one.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Or sorry, that's kind of the other way around. Say you get way more for your money in the top package. The middle package is only slightly cheaper. You'll go, it's worth it. I'm getting way more for only, $300 more. It's definitely worth to go to that top package.
Yeah.
So it's figuring out where you want to push people.
Peter says that, is this the same as price nudging? I don't know what price nudging is, but it could be. It sounds like it could be, Peter. I'm not familiar with that term, so it might well be. So we have another question before we go on, Zena. Let me just put on my eyes so I can see. So Yvonne is saying, how do you recommend to deal with the really price sensitive clients? Don't have them in the first place, I think, is the short answer. But let's say we do have somebody who comes in and they're really price sensitive. How do you deal with that? And I suppose it depends there's so many answers to that question, isn't there? So it's how do they get that far in the process without have some price indication. So I think you need to look at earlier in the sales process rather than your pricing strategy to try and weed out those, we call them in BSA pyrite, they look like gold, but they're not. And there'll always be some who sneak through, right? that fool us. But I think you have to go earlier in the sales process to figure that out. Carrie then says, do you suggest putting specific products and packages versus product credit. I worry about saying package B includes a 16 by 24 when that doesn't fit in the client's home. So I'm not sure, Carrie, where that's coming from, but yes, you need to, I suppose, be conscious of what is in the packages. So a lot of photographers I know, you know, they take the price consideration out a bit based on their products. Ina, can you talk to us a little bit about that as to where we see photographers now, you know, stuff that's similar, that how you group it together at the same price? And this can refer to a whole lot of things like wall art. Can you just talk to us a little bit about that as to what we see a lot of photographers doing that might answer that question another way?
Yeah, so what a lot of photographers are doing are they'll charge the same price for the different sizes of wall art. Now, obviously within reason, they'll basically, you're giving the client the option to buy something that will fit in their home in that wall space, rather than going, oh, well, I can only afford 300, so I'm only going to go to this size. So they're buying something that suits them. And obviously, if you have it priced right, you know, so that you're not losing on the bigger pieces, then you're actually probably going to win in the end, because it'll balance out in general. But if you have yourself priced right, you're never going to lose. But you're fulfilling the needs of your client first, rather than getting them to shop based on the price.
And I suppose it also, Zina, over time, you know, you get to understand who your client goals avatar is and how they spend and what they want, you know, and because the whole principle is trying to get clone those ideal client goal avatars and bring more of those into your business, and most of them will have similar needs. So I think you will get sort of greater insight over time as to what should be in there and what shouldn't be in there. But there is something happening in the marketing generations, you know, about Generation Y, the millennials, and Generation Z and Z, you know, this idea of, you know, quantity of images, right? So, and I know this is a little bit off topic, but I think it is relevant in that when you are looking at your packages, and why we invented what we do in the first place on the folio boxes. Just talk to us a little bit about that before we move on.
Yeah, as you said, it's one of the reasons why we brought the folio box to market, is because, you know, we believe people love having multiple images from their photo shoot. You know, you've gone to all the trouble of creating a multitude of images, and, you know, people want more nowadays. They're not happy with kind of one or two. We've gotten a bit greedy nowadays. And so they want a multitude of images. So why not give them the opportunity to buy more images rather than limiting them to 1, 2, or 3 maybe for the wall?
But they also want quality, don't they, Zina? So it's not that they don't want the wall images, just so that we're clear on that. What we're saying is there's an opportunity, you're leaving money on the table if you stop just selling for the wall, because today's generations in particular, just think about the amount of times they go around taking selfies of themselves. You know, so they want those images for their aspirational selves on social media, right?
Yeah, and like, I think you'll find if you start giving them an opportunity to buy more, they actually want them. They don't want to leave those images behind in your studio. You know, they love them, they want them. So it's about giving them the opportunity. And like, as you said yourself, if you look at your own phone gallery, I mean, we all have so many images. It's what we're used to doing. You know, we're used to multiple shots of everything. So yeah, definitely.
And we're a great believer in selling to people what they want, not what they need, but use the want to sell the need, right? And that's why with the folio boxes, we've combined the physical printed product that we know they need, but a lot of consumers want the digital file for that social media world that they live in, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Okay, so let's just talk about then decision fatigue. We've talked a little bit about it already, but let's just go back to it because I think it's an important thing to talk about. So with regards to decision fatigue and pricing, you know, when does the client become fatigued?
Well, basically, if you've got too much choice. If you give people too many options, they get to the point where they're like, I literally can't make a decision because I just don't know what to choose. And there was a really famous study done by, I think, Columbia University in New York. And they basically set up a stand of jam samples outside a supermarket, right? And they had 6 jams. And then they did another one and they put out 24 jams. And way more people stopped as they're going to the supermarket, stopped at the stand that had 24 jams and they're trying the samples of jams, right? Way more people than the people who stopped where it had 6 jams. But the amount of people who bought from the stand that had 6 jams was like way bigger. So with 75% less choice, they had, I think, 6 times the number of purchases, simply by offering fewer options, because people just can't do it in their head. They just can't go, I don't know what to pick. So they pick nothing and they walk away, which is exactly what you want to avoid in your scenario.
So what you're saying is if you confuse, you lose. You know, and I see a lot of photographers with, and I never get it, understand how it works, is, you know, where they have the corner of all the frames and they have 100 different frames to choose from, thinking that that will increase the sales because I'll have one that'll suit everybody. But that actually does the opposite, because you're just introducing something else that, oh, I have to make another decision now. Which one do I like? And it can put off the whole sale, right?
Yeah. And you know, the other one as well that I often see is photographers will offer all sorts of different kinds of wall art, from like, I don't even know the technical terms because this is not my thing, but all these different ones. And because I don't know, your client probably doesn't know the difference either. And now they're confused. They're like, oh, well, which one am I going to go for? I don't really know what that is as compared to that one, which is better.
So what you're saying is if we've got a stretch canvas and we have a framed print with a frame of maybe 2 or 3 colors to choose from, and we have an acrylic, we're a lot in our industry, you know, a lot is taught around a price multiplier. So let's say your price multiplier is 5 or 10, the number doesn't matter. We then look at the cost of the item and we want to apply each one by the 5. So we end up with 3 different price points for the same sized wall art. But our client doesn't know. And that then you're just introducing, you're getting them back into logical mind, because they have to switch back into price mind to choose which one they're going to buy rather than which one they prefer, which is an emotional mindset and what's going to sit. So if you can, you should price those items. I would pick the dearest one and do my multiplier on that. And, or you can choose the middle one, you know, the middle priced one, and you lose on some and you'll gain on the other, but it'll work its way out eventually on that. The one clarification where there's a difference on that is, obviously there's painted artworks that, you know, are much more involved than, say, the 3 examples we gave. So in that case, you can't price that at the same as you would an acrylic, you know, on the wall or a frame print or whatever, but because of all the handwork that goes in afterwards to the actual painting style. But where they are not that, where they're all similar, you should have a look at, don't base your pricing based on the product price, but base it on, you know, grouping all of them together into one. So you take away another decision for the client and another situation where you turn them into a logical mindset of choosing. So Zina, tell me this, right? You know, the really quality luxury brands, where they don't publish any pricing, you know, but there's also some people and some businesses who say, pay me what you think this is worth. Have you ever come across a photographer whose pricing strategy is, okay, Zina, you've been true, pay me now what the relationship I've captured for you in art is worth? Have you ever come across a photographer who's done that?
I've never come across a photographer who's done that, but you know what? It'd be a really interesting experiment if anyone was brave enough to give it a try. But you know what? You want to be planting those big numbers in their heads first so that they have a high number as a reference point, and then you might do all right.
Yes, so just for clarity, we're not recommending you switch your your strategy to this, but it's, what we as a business, Gary Box christened me the thought provocateur, so of the industry. So I like to do that and just explore ideas, because you just never know what's in there. But let's just see what other questions are here. Let me see what we have. So question. Is this based on the fact that there is an a la carte price list as well as a collection of packages? Yes, definitely relevant. Okay, I think that's a confirmation of the answer. Yvonne says, that sounds absolutely insane. What if they say a really low number? Yeah, as I said, Yvonne, I've never seen anybody do it in our industry, but other industries do it. So I suppose it comes down to, if it's trialed and it's done right and you've captured those relationships and you've price pointed all your stuff at some of the tactics Zena said, it might work. You might actually get a surprise where your average actually goes up. But we are not saying that you should do this. Just warning, we're just throwing it out there. It's just an idea.
You know where it might work? If you say you have a studio on the high street or something, if you're beside a really expensive store, then it might work. Because there was actually another study that was done, and they set up a stall selling sweatshirts for $10. Right, and there was a stand beside it, nothing to do with it, that was selling CDs for exactly that type of thing of, you just pay me whatever you think it's worth, right? Now, another day, they changed the sweatshirt sign to selling for $80. On the day that the sweatshirts were selling for $80, people spent more money on the CD. They were willing to pay more than the days those sweatshirts were on sale for $10 beside them. Nothing to do with the CDs themselves. So maybe if you're beside a really luxury store, you could give it a go and see what happens.
Oh, so Carrie says there is a photographer who did it. So Carrie says, I had a client come to me after a photographer did that to them and they hated it. Really? Right. I'd be interested though to see what the results. I'd love to talk to that photographer, Carrie, if you know who it is, because I'd love to see like what the results are over time. Because no matter what you do, there's going to be some clients you just can't please, right? And you upset them somehow, or they're just not comfortable with it. But, a sample size of one is never a sample size that we can base really important decisions on. But I'm really curious, Carrie, you have me curious now as to, I'd love to know more. So then Yvonne says, oh no, not nutting it. Oh, I'm not sure what that is, Yvonne. I think you're referring to a previous comment. So Zena, before we go on, or before we finish up, and if there's any more questions, guys, ask them now, right? Because we're coming close to the end. But Zena, is there anything else on this pricing psychology piece, or the psychology of pricing, that you think we need to consider in this industry?
Well, I came across this weird thing the other day. And again, it seems a little bit bonkers. But if you have, say, a pricing menu or a catalog or whatever, where you've got pictures of the products, if you show your products in a vertical format, as opposed to a horizontal format, for some reason, again, our brains are crazy things, they perceive that product as being more luxurious if it's shown vertically, and they're more willing to pay a higher price for that product. It sounds absolutely nutty, but again, this is all scientifically verified stuff. So I thought that was a really interesting one, and I only came across it, so I'm definitely going to try it out myself with our marketing materials. See what happens.
Because we quite often go landscape or square, right? So it'd be interesting just to see. And a lot of these examples are not relating to our industry necessarily, right? So we do have to trial them and test them and see, do they work for us? But it's still nonetheless no reason why not to consider them and adopt some of them, because some of these principles absolutely do relate to photography, because we see a lot of photographers doing it that way, and a lot of successful photographers doing it that way. Some of the other ones that we may not be aware of, if they've been tested and trialed properly, it costs nothing to give it a go and see, does it make a difference? But just remember, a sample size of one is not a big enough sample size. You need to go beyond that a couple of times. So Zena, we're going to test that, are we? We're going to change our price list to vertical rather than square, because I've seen a lot where we changed at one stage to square because everyone else was vertical or landscape,
yeah.
And to be different. So there's other considerations too, right?
Yeah.
When considering all these things. Okay. So Yvonne says that seems something like I would try. I think you might be referring, Yvonne, to the idea of seeing what would you pay. But if it'd be really interesting, because if you've fully invested the client in the relationships and you've anchored those relationships in what you're offering and your ability to capture them, it might just work. It'd be really interesting to see. I don't know who'd be brave enough to do it, but it would be really interesting to see. Okay, so Alina says, my price list is vertical and 4 out of 5 buy the most expensive package. Oh, interesting. And Yvonne says the vertical product shots. So they must be working for her as well, the idea of the vertical product shots. Carrie says this photographer was Jen Rosenbaum. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. You may know her. She's primarily a boudoir photographer. I'm not sure if she was only offering that pay what you want to photographers only. I'm sure she would talk to you. Oh, that'd be interesting to find out. Yeah, whether she was, Carrie, just doing it for other photographers, or whether she actually does it as a pricing strategy. And that's a great point, Carrie, because it's really important, isn't it, just to verify if that's the case or it's not. Is this something just that's not actually put in front of your ideal client, but just where you're in front of family or friends or people like that, where you're uncomfortable in presenting the actual price and you say, pay me what you think it's worth. But it's important, I think, when you're doing that you're applying that you link it to the relationship that you've captured in the art you've created, rather than being about the product. And that's really important. And that's firmly anchored, that it's about the relationship you've captured rather than the physical product. I mean that. Okay. So any last questions? Has anybody? Zena, we asked people at the very beginning, had they any ideas to share around something? Just remind us what that was, just in case somebody has an idea.
That was around placing a high number in the client's brain at the beginning before they're exposed to your prices or your ordering session or whatever. Did anyone have any ideas of a random high number that they can plant in their brains?
So do you think, Zena, there's nothing on that yet, but do you think, what if we use a testimonial for that? So if we had a testimonial who said something like, I invested 6,000 with Zena Royal Photography, or whatever your number is, 6,000 with Zena Royal Photography, that I wasn't expecting to place, but when she captured those special relationships, I just had to buy not only her top elite package, but I had to buy another piece of wall art for the wall too. Would a testimonial like that sort of put people in the front before they read the prices, that they're thinking a higher number?
Yeah, that could definitely work for sure. Yeah, it's a good idea.
So somebody has asked a question around what should we do for where should we display pricing on our website? I would say no, unless you're directing people to an actual offer and you want to show the value of that offer, that if they avail of the offer now. So I think the pricing should be in a conversation. So it should be later on in the sales process, would be my view. Some photographers
might publish a guideline, or the average spend of our clients is X, and therefore you might weed out people that's absolutely out of their price range before you get to the whole consultation stage.
And then you can have, of course, you can do that with testimonial too, can't you? Like we just discussed, that you can have a testimonial that, doesn't frighten them off, but just, and a lot of photographers do, our prices start from, but you don't have to buy, you just buy what you love, So you're putting into the client's mind, you're taking away any fear they have. And then you use the sales consultation or the conversation, to determine whether this client is your ideal client gold or whether they are pyrite. And you don't want to spend any more time along the journey. So that's important too, that you don't put people off too early, but you give them enough information that they make that contact with you. Because if you think about when people are on your website, they've already become aware they want a photographer, and they've got to the stage of their buying process where they're building their knowledge about what's available and who's available and what the system is and what the plan is and how do I go about it. And then they are shortlisting their shortlist at the consideration stage. So they might look at 10 photographers' websites to build their knowledge around it. And then they're shortlisting then to make contact to see who's the best one for them. So just be aware of that buying process as well and how that all links in. Okay, so Zena, is there any last questions there? Have you been keeping an eye on the chat, or has anyone come up with any ideas about? Somebody's talking about golf carts. I'm fascinated because all of our family are golfers except me. Jer says men's graphic golf set with cart bag, £6,850. Okay, so it is. Oh, it's Gar. Sorry, Gar. Gar says that, and so I don't know why. Oh, maybe that's maybe a price thing. Mention a figure that I bought a new golf or new golf. I bought this golf cart or whatever. Yeah, maybe it's something to do with that. The first, Carrie says that's always the first question. How much does it cost? Please send me a price list. Okay, Carrie. So you need to deflect that question when it comes in. But the reason why they ask that question, if they're coming from your website, is the reason we've just mentioned. So they're aware they need a photographer. They go around looking at all the possible photographers in their area. So they might visit anything from 4 to 10 websites. They're gathering information, including price. So then when they shortlist it, they think the only bit of information they're missing is the price. And that's why they open with, what do you charge for? And that's one of the reasons at BSA, we help photographers to bring people into their world who, what we call, are blissfully unaware that they need a photographer. So you're interrupting them on social media with social media advertising when they're not aware they need a photographer. You're planting the seed there, and you'll bring them into your world where you build their knowledge and they don't consider anyone else. So that's one of the reasons why social media marketing works. But I didn't intend going there today, but seeing as you mentioned that, I just had to say it. Yvonne says, I just say first, let's see if we are a good fit, and then we can talk pricing. And that's absolutely, that's price deflecting, because we know that it's not about price what we do. There's so much to what we do as professional photographers that we need to make sure that the client is fully educated before we start talking about price. But the problem is they think that they have all the knowledge already from doing their research online before they make contact with you. That's the reason why. So that's the reason why you deflect and why you bring them into your world. But if you can even bring them into your world before they're aware that they have a requirement for you, it's even stronger. It's even stronger. So Brad Bulmer, who runs a studio with his parents, he'll tell you this, that he's measured, because Brad's a real numbers guy. So not only is he a marketing guy, but he's a numbers guy, and he's measured the average spend of people who come via his website versus people he brings into his world with his marketing funnels. And the people that spend far more who come into his world via his marketing funnels than the inquiries that come in on his website. And I'm sure if you contact him, or if you join BSA for a free trial, if you're already a member, reach out to him, he'll share all that data with you. So Zena, how do we get this guide on the psychology of pricing?
Yeah, so I can post a link to it. It is on our website under free resources. If you look at the menu, there's a whole bunch of stuff in there, including the psychology of pricing guide. There's a pricing workbook. There's all sorts of stuff in there, free to download. All you have to be is registered on 3xmsolution.com.
So if I go to, I'll just post a link to 3xmsolution.com then, Zena, yeah? So if I post that link here, and people
I can find a link, maybe. I might be able to get you a link to the resource page.
Oh yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, if you do that, and if people visit that resource page, then, and if they're not registered, they just register and then they'll have access to it. Or if they are already registered, they just have to go to that page, log in, and they'll have access to all that content, right?
Here's a link. It's called ebooks, but there's a lot more than just ebooks on it now.
Okay. So Zena, in summary, if I was to take one thing from tonight as a photographer, where would you start? What would you prioritize maybe on what we've learned tonight that you would start with?
If you feel pretty confident that you have your pricing pretty good, or you have your collections laid out pretty well, start with the small stuff. Start with the really simple things to change, like making sure you're pricing from the highest price downwards, making sure that you don't have commas in your pricing, that they're saying 1,499, remove the currency symbol when it's obvious that it's a price. Do all the really small, easy stuff and see what happens. Now, that's assuming you do have a good handle on your pricing to start with, and that you do have your packages properly made out if you do packages, or you have your a la carte menu decided upon. But think about the smaller stuff, read that guide, go through it, use my checklist to make sure you're hitting all those things. And if you are doing all of those things, you should see an improvement in your sales.
And if you haven't yet feel that you've priced for profit, do join us in BSA Mastermind. We're literally on that subject today. So there was a recording put in from Monday's webinar, where we discussed this whole idea of pricing strategy, positioning, information, quality, and product that is aligned with your pricing for profit, because it's really important on how you know that and whether you have. So do join us, check us out. You'll find us, it's a Facebook group, BSA Mastermind. Join us in there, have a look at the recordings, they're all in there. You get access to, we've been going on a journey to create a business success plan over the last 7 weeks. We're now on week 6, but all the stuff is recorded. It's all in the units tab. And there's a whole bit of learning and data and tools to help you with this whole idea of pricing for profit. So if you combine what Zena has shared with us on the psychology of pricing, and you combine it with the pricing for profit, and you put those two things together and it aligns with your business metrics, you'll be well set to make 2021 your best year in business yet. So Zena, have 3XM any new products or new plans or new things coming up? I know how are the new window boxes going?
The new wood window boxes are going down an absolute treat. People are loving them. The minute they show them to their first clients, they're buying them. So they're being already super successful for the people who've gotten their samples in. So I would recommend, if you're not familiar with our wood window folio boxes, go onto our website, have a look. I think you'll be blown away by the quality. They're a beautiful, beautiful product, and they're well worth a shot if you haven't gone there already.
There's one right behind you in the walnut, but we have it now in the black, and we have it in the white as well. But the white is not just a straight white paint, right? It's a, what do you call it? Shabby chic, a brushed white effect.
Yeah, shabby chic. You can see the wood grain in terms of color and the texture coming through. So it's really, really gorgeous finish. It suits photographers that have that really nice airy look, or beach type portraits or things. It's a beautiful, beautiful box for that kind of aesthetic.
And it was also designed for newborn in mind and weddings, right? That
definitely, it looks brilliant at newborn and weddings.
And when we designed it, we designed it for that particular genres, but that doesn't mean other people won't use it. As you say, beach portrait is very relevant. But what we love about our window folio box is the fact that, one, it's glass, right, on the front. And I think you did a hammer. You've shown, because we do all these testing, but you actually made a video of how we do that, and tested with a hammer. Please don't bring a sledgehammer to your sample. We've already done the test to make sure it doesn't break easily. Please don't try it at home. It was in a controlled environment with all safety, wearing goggles, all that stuff. But the other thing is, what I love about it is that the main image is properly framed all the time. There's no ribbon in the way, or not hiding ribbon behind and all that. So there's a whole lot of ideas, a whole lot of cool benefits, yeah, and features within the product that can make it. And you talk about family portraiture and all the extra images, and the idea of the family even discussing and debating whose image is going to be on display right in the window this week. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, like if you think about it, it's like a frame. It looks beautiful like a frame, but it's so versatile because you have all these images in the folio box, and you can now swap them around And it literally takes a couple of seconds to do it. You just pull out the insert, put the new matted print inside, and the magnets of the insert all suck it up together and put it perfectly in position. It's really cool. But yeah, think about how versatile a display it is for your client's home. You know, they can have different imagery on show, or maybe even different times of the year. They might put like a Christmas image in for Christmas time, or they might put their summer pictures in during the summertime, or their fall pictures in during fall or autumn, as we call it here. So it gives them so much control over what they want to show, that they're not stuck with the same image in the frame all the time.
So if I'm a photographer who sells for the wall first, the art, then take the images that are left in others and give them, not give them, sell them, increase your sales by selling them those extra images in a folio box that's versatile, and see how you can satisfy that digital want at the same time, so they get not only what they want, but what they need as well. And just a really cool thing that we've just added, I think, Zena, is the beautiful black diamond box that's around the window boxes. I see one behind you there. We can now offer branding on the outside of that presentation. So it really is, you know, quality, luxury approach.
And make sure your brand is front and center all the time.
Make sure your brand is front and center. Excellent, because you can't do that in a window box, right? Because if they're displaying an upright image and you have it branded on the outside of the box, once they turn it landscape, then it loses it, right? It just looks silly. So that's why we don't brand the frame of the box, and we recommend that it goes on the lid of the presentation box, because they won't throw away that presentation box. It's a bit like the Apple box, you know. When I buy an Apple phone, our house is full of Apple. Family of 6, we're all Apple people, but all the boxes are kept. Any other product that they buy, the box ends up in the bin. So we've designed our diamond box to fit the same way. Okay, so I think that's it for today. We've no last questions, I don't think. Thank you all for joining us. We hope this has been useful to you. And we thank those of you who are customers. Thank you for your business. Your business enables us to do things like this. Oh, there's a question. One question, please. Yes, of course, Yvonne. Ask your question away there. Zena, while Yvonne's just typing her question there, is there anything last minute you want to say?
Oh, sorry, just looking at Yvonne's question. The max amount of images the folio box holds, Yvonne, they can hold up to 30. So you're looking at the XL boxes will take up to 30 matted prints, and the regular boxes will take 20 matted prints, up to 20.
And then we have a false base if you're selling 15 or wherever for the regular folio box capacity. And then we encourage a lot of photographers, if you're selling less than 10, so 5, that you use our diamond box, and then you use the folio box as an upsell to sell more images as well in your collections. Okay, so that's it for today. Oh, if people haven't bought yet, do you co-invest in studio samples or 3XM?
Yes, absolutely. We'll give you a 25% discount on the studio sample to get you started, get you selling straight away.
So we reduced the price by 25% as a co-investment. If you want a studio sample, that's our way of helping getting you started quicker. So that's it for today. Thank you so much, Zena, for joining us. Thank you for taking time out of your schedule. I know it's really, really busy. There's a lot of marketing work goes into 3XM. So thank you for sharing all your knowledge on the psychology of pricing. You'll get the guide as well by just following that link. And if you'd like to know a little bit more about pricing for success, ensuring that your pricing is aligned for profit, do join us in BSA Mastermind. Have a look at the earnings in there. We've loads of tools and calculators to help you with that. So stay safe, and it's free.
BSA Mastermind, it's free.
BSA Mastermind is free, yeah. So we bring into BSA Mastermind for free, all the content there. Why we do that is because you buy our folio boxes. We're able to do things like that to help you, because we want to help you master the business for photography, because by mastering the business of photography, you sell more of the art you create, and we know the power of the art you create in creating a healthier society through photography. So that's it for tonight. Good night. Thank you for joining us, Zena. We'll see you all soon. Take care. Oh, Thursday, Zena, on the think tank, we're doing sort of a highlights reel, right, of all the think tank webinars we've had. So many wonderful ones where Mary Fitz-Taylor have interviewed so many people. So we're going to present some of those from now until the holiday season, right? on the Tuesdays and Thursdays. So stay safe, stay healthy, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll talk to you again, and hopefully we'll see some of you on Thursday. Bye for now.
Bye.